All right, so Silicon Valley real estate.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty much, people think of million-dollar homes, right?
Right, right.
But are there ways to invest there
Mm-hmm.
without actually needing, a tech giant salary?
That's a great question.
Today, we're going to explore a podcast episode
Okay.
called How to Invest in Silicon Valley Real Estate Without Breaking the Bank.
Okay.
And it's by Andy Vong. He's a real estate advisor right in the heart of the Valley.
Got it.
And he's got some really creative strategies to share.
I'm interested.
Yeah, I think they might surprise you.
Okay.
So,
Well, I think it's driven by this really unique set of forces. You've got this incredible concentration of tech companies.
right.
And of course, they create this demand for housing that constantly outpaces supply.
Yeah,
Then on top of that, you've got very limited land
right.
due to zoning laws and just the geography of the region. So you put all that together and boom, you've got a recipe for these crazy property values.
Right, those multi-million-dollar single-family homes. Right?
Exactly.
They definitely grab your attention.
For sure.
But Vaughn's point is that there's actually this whole world of investment opportunities
Yeah.
beyond those, headline-grabbing mansions.
Totally. I mean, for example, you could look at condos and townhomes as a lower barrier to entry.
Okay.
And with all of these young professionals and first-time buyers drawn to the tech scene, rental potential in Silicon Valley is huge.
Yeah, so it's like dipping your toes in the Silicon Valley pool without, doing a cannonball into the deep end.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, let's get specific.
Okay.
Vong talks about this concept called house hacking.
Okay.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
Yeah, what is that?
Can you break that down?
So imagine buying a multi-unit property, something like a duplex or a triplex.
Okay.
You live in one of the units and rent out the others. Okay. That rental income helps you cover your mortgage payments.
Oh, wow.
And you're simultaneously building equity in that property.
So you're essentially living rent-free
Yeah.
while becoming a homeowner.
That's the idea.
Wow. But what if you wanted to, pool resources with someone?
Ah, great point. That's where partnerships come in.
Okay.
Vong really emphasizes the power of teaming up with others to invest in those larger properties that you might not be able to afford on your own.
So you're like assembling your own real estate dream team.
Exactly.
I like it. Now, for those who prefer a less hands-on approach, Vong also talks about REITs.
Right.
Real estate investment trusts.
So REITs are companies that own, operate, or finance income-producing real estate.
Okay.
So when you buy into a REIT, you're buying shares of that company.
Right.
Essentially owning a small piece of their entire portfolio.
Oh, okay.
It's a way to diversify and get into the Silicon Valley market without actually having to manage any properties yourself.
So it's like a taste of that Silicon Valley real estate magic.
Yeah.
Without needing a landlord license.
Exactly.
Now, here's where it gets interesting to me.
Okay.
Vong talks about creative financing.
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean?
So that's all about exploring alternative ways to fund a deal.
Okay.
For example, with seller financing, the seller of the property becomes the lender.
Oh, interesting.
Often with more flexible terms than a traditional bank.
So you cut out the middleman and you kind of build that relationship directly with the seller.
Exactly.
Interesting. Now, what about those subject to deals he mentioned?
Ah, yes. So with a subject to deal, you're basically taking over the existing mortgage on a property.
Oh, wow.
Essentially, you're stepping into the seller's shoes as the borrower.
That seems complex.
It can be.
Yeah.
It's definitely a way to get a property with less upfront cash.
Okay.
But it's critical to have expert legal guidance.
Right.
Because you are assuming the responsibility of that loan.
Wow. It sounds like you really need to do your homework.
Oh, absolutely.
Before jumping into something like that.
Yeah.
Now, Vong also talks about looking beyond those usual Silicon Valley hotspots.
Yes.
Like Palo Alto, Mountain View. Why is that?
Well, those places are just so expensive already.
Right.
He's suggesting looking at emerging areas that have lower prices and potentially higher growth.
Okay.
So think like East San Jose. You're seeing lots of revitalization efforts.
Right.
New businesses are moving in.
Yeah.
You can get in before prices really take off.
It's like finding that hidden gem, right?
Yeah.
Before everyone else catches on. And speaking of trends, Vong highlights co-living as something to watch.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
Co-living is really gaining traction. especially in high-cost markets like Silicon Valley. It's a type of shared living arrangement where residents have their own private bedrooms, but they share common areas like the kitchen, living room, sometimes even workspaces.
Interesting.
It appeals to a younger, mobile workforce that values that sense of community and affordability.
It's almost like a modern-day upscale dormitory.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Interesting. Now, what about for investors with that long-term view? Vong mentioned something called land banking.
Right. So with land banking, you're acquiring land in an area that you think will grow significantly in the future. You basically hold on to that land, let it appreciate over time, and then you can either sell it or develop it down the road.
So it's a bit of a gamble,
Yeah.
but with potentially a big payoff.
Exactly.
It's amazing how many different ways there are to invest in Silicon Valley.
I know, right? It's more than meets the eye.
Yeah. But, I mean, before we get too excited, we have to understand the potential pitfalls.
Absolutely. Every market has risks, especially a dynamic one like Silicon Valley.
So let's take a closer look at those pitfalls.
Yeah, let's do it. One of the biggest mistakes investors make is over-leveraging.
Okay. Over-leveraging, meaning?
Basically taking on too much debt.
So they're biting off more than they can chew financially.
Exactly. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a deal and end up stretching your finances too thin.
Yeah.
But especially in a market like Silicon Valley, where prices can fluctuate, it's super important to make sure you can actually handle your mortgage payments.
Right. And all the other expenses.
Exactly, even if the market takes a dip.
It sounds like having a solid financial plan is key.
Oh, absolutely.
What about doing your due diligence?
Oh, due diligence is crucial. It's about going beyond the surface and thoroughly researching a property.
Right.
The neighborhood, even the seller's motivations.
Wow. So you're like a real estate detective.
You could say that, yeah.
Uncovering all the clues.
Trying to.
What kind of things should investors be looking for?
Well, for instance, let's say you're looking at a property in East San Jose.
Okay.
You want to look at things like crime rates in that neighborhood, quality of the local schools, any planned developments that could impact property values down the line.
Right.
You also really want to understand the property's condition.
Okay.
Are there major repairs needed?
Right.
What are property taxes like in that area?
It's amazing how many factors come into play.
It is, yeah.
Now, beyond the purchase price, I imagine there are some hidden costs, right?
Oh, absolutely. Don't just focus on that initial purchase price.
Right.
Remember things like property taxes, which can be really high in California, ongoing maintenance costs, potential HOA fees if you're buying a condo or townhouse, and even the possibility of vacancies if you're planning to rent out the property.
It's like those extra fees the airlines tack on.
Exactly.
Those can really add up.
They do.
Speaking of things that can change unexpectedly, Vong reminds us about real estate cycles.
Yeah.
What does he mean by that?
Well, even though Silicon Valley's had really strong long-term growth, it's not immune to those short-term fluctuations.
Okay.
The market can be influenced by like interest rate changes, economic downturns, even global events.
Wow.
So yeah, it's not always going to be a smooth upward trajectory.
Yeah, so there could be some bumps along the way.
Exactly. Okay. And that's why it's important to have that long-term perspective.
Right.
And don't panic if there's a temporary dip.
Right.
If you did your research, you invested in a solid property, you're more likely to weather those storms.
It's reassuring to know that even if the roller coaster takes a sudden plunge, you're still strapped in.
You got it.
For the long haul. But even with the best research, even with the best planning, navigating the Silicon Valley real estate market can feel really overwhelming.
It can, yeah.
So what's Vong's advice?
He really stresses building a strong team of advisors.
Oh, okay.
Think of it as your real estate A-team.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So who are the key players?
Well, first you need an experienced real estate agent who really gets the Silicon Valley market.
Okay.
They can help you find properties that match your goals, match your budget, negotiate effectively with sellers, navigate the whole complex transaction process.
So they're like your guide through the Silicon Valley jungle.
I like that.
Okay. Who else should be on this team?
You'll also need a lender
to
help you secure financing.
So somebody who can help you through that mortgage maze.
Yeah. And then on the legal side of things, you want a real estate attorney.
Okay. And what would they do?
A good attorney will review all the contracts,
Okay.
make sure everything's legally sound,
Right.
and protect your interests throughout the process.
It sounds like having that team of experts can make a world of difference,
For sure.
especially in a market as fast-paced and competitive as Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming otherwise.
Yeah. Okay, we covered a lot here.
We did.
From the unique dynamics of the Silicon Valley market
Yeah.
to the investment strategies
Yeah.
to those potential pitfalls.
Lots to consider.
What are the key takeaways we should keep in mind?
I think the biggest takeaway is investing in Silicon Valley isn't just for millionaires.
Okay, so we're busting that myth wide open.
Yeah. With the right strategies and mindset,
Mhm.
it's definitely possible.
Okay, but it's not just wishful thinking.
No. Vong's episode really lays out a roadmap
Okay.
with practical strategies, like starting small with condos or
Yeah.
townhomes, leveraging that power of house hacking, exploring partnerships, even getting into creative financing.
It's about finding that approach that fits your goals and your resources.
Absolutely.
But due diligence is, like, paramount.
Oh, for sure.
Research is your best friend in this game.
It really is.
What about you? What really stood out to you?
You know, honestly, that co-living concept really caught my attention.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting response to this housing market.
Yeah.
It really caters to this new generation of tech workers
Right.
who are looking for that community and flexibility and affordability.
It's definitely a trend worth watching.
For sure.
Now, for our listeners out there, what kind of Silicon Valley property would you be most interested in exploring? Condos, townhomes, multifamily properties,
Yeah,
land for potential development. What are you thinking?
that's a good question.
The possibilities are out there.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We're going to continue our deep dive
Okay.
into Silicon Valley real estate.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised to see just how many different types of properties are actually available in Silicon Valley.
Right.
You know, it's not all these giant estates and like tech campuses.
Right. There's definitely something for everyone, it seems.
Yeah.
From those REITs, a hands-off approach to like full-on landlord house hacking.
Yep.
To those long-term land banking plays.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, let's say someone is really intrigued by that house hacking idea,
Okay.
but they've never been a landlord before.
Right.
What advice would you give them?
Well, first, I'd say really crunch the numbers.
Okay.
Look at properties with strong rental potential, calculate that income, and compare it to the mortgage and all those expenses.
So it's not just about finding a cool place to live.
No.
You got to approach it like a business.
Exactly. You've also got to be ready for all the responsibilities that come with being a landlord.
Okay.
Are you comfortable handling tenant issues, repairs, maintenance?
Right.
Or would you rather hire a property manager for all that?
So there's a lot to think about
Yeah, for sure.
before you just jump into house hacking.
Yeah, but it can be really rewarding if you do your research and have a solid plan.
Now, we talked about creative financing earlier, and those subject to deals really caught my attention.
Yeah.
Are those common in Silicon Valley?
They can be, especially with affordability being such a big issue.
Right.
With a subject to deal, you're essentially taking over the existing mortgage.
Yeah.
Let's say a seller has a mortgage with a really low interest rate that they got, years ago.
So you'd inherit that rate.
Exactly.
Wow, that sounds like a really good deal.
It can be, but there are risks.
Okay.
You're taking on the legal responsibility for that loan.
Okay.
So if the seller defaults, you could end up being responsible.
Oh, wow. That's a little scary.
Yeah, it can be. It's why it's super important to have a real estate attorney look over the contract.
Yeah.
Make sure you understand everything.
Right.
You want to be sure that seller's financially stable, too.
Okay, so not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, I'd say not.
What about seller financing?
Yeah, so with seller financing, the seller basically becomes the lender. Let's say you find this property you love,
Right.
but you just can't quite get a traditional mortgage.
Okay.
Maybe your credit isn't great.
Right. Or not enough for a down payment.
Exactly. Then seller financing could be a good option.
Okay.
You work out a payment plan directly with that seller,
Okay.
often with more flexible terms than a bank.
So kind of a win-win
It can be, yeah.
for both the buyer and the seller.
The seller sells their property,
Right.
the buyer gets their dream home, no hoops.
But you need that solid contract
Oh, absolutely.
to protect everyone.
Yep, to protect both parties.
So it seems like the takeaway is
Yeah,
there are many ways to approach real estate in Silicon Valley.
there are, yeah. It's not a one-size-fits-all market.
You got to find that strategy that fits your goals, your risk tolerance, all of that.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked about a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
But what are some mistakes you see investors making?
Oh, one of the biggest is falling in love with a property without doing their due diligence. Okay.
They get swept up in the potential profit and forget to do their homework.
Skipping that detective phase.
Yeah, exactly.
And that could lead to some costly mistakes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another common one is overpaying.
Right.
You get caught up in bidding wars, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And end up paying more than it's worth.
So how can investors avoid falling into that trap?
I think you've got to really understand market value
Okay.
of similar properties. Your agent can help with this.
Right.
They can give you data on recent sales
Okay.
and help you see if the price is fair.
So they're like your guide through that market value maze.
Yeah, exactly.
Another mistake.
Another common one is underestimating the costs of actually owning the property.
Okay.
People focus just on the mortgage,
Right.
but forget property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, all of that.
So those hidden costs can really sneak up on you.
Oh, they definitely can.
Yeah.
You've really got to factor all that in. Right, to calculate that return on investment.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, let's talk about building that real estate A-team.
Okay.
You mentioned that experienced agent.
Yeah.
What should investors look for?
I think the most important thing is market knowledge.
Okay.
You want an agent who really knows Silicon Valley, the neighborhoods,
Right.
the trends, all of that.
So not just familiar, but they understand how it works.
Exactly. And you also want an agent who's a good communicator.
Right. Someone who listens to you.
Yeah, exactly. Someone you trust.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be working closely with this person.
What about finding a lender?
Ah, good question. I'd recommend getting pre-approved for a mortgage before you even look at properties.
To get those ducks in a row.
Yeah, basically. It shows sellers you're serious
Right.
and you're ready to make an offer.
It also tells you how much you can actually borrow.
Exactly.
Makes sense. And finally, the real estate attorney.
Yeah.
Does every investor need one?
I would highly recommend it. Okay.
Especially in Silicon Valley. They can review contracts, protect your interests.
Right.
Make sure everything's good legally.
So your legal guardian angel.
Yeah, something like that.
Making sure everything's above board.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can also give you advice on things like taxes, zoning laws, all of that.
It really sounds like building a team is key here.
I think it is, yeah. Real estate investing, it's not really a solo sport.
Right.
Having the right people makes all the difference.
So knowing what you know now, would you personally invest in Silicon Valley real estate?
I've actually been giving it some thought.
Yeah.
After doing all this research, hearing all this stuff, I'm seeing the potential.
Yeah.
I think I'd be interested in, like, a multifamily property and trying that house hacking thing.
Well, that sounds like a fun challenge.
Yeah, I think so.
What about you? If you were to dip your toes in, what kind of property?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I think I'd probably look at those emerging areas, like Vong was talking about, East San Jose. I like that idea of finding something with growth potential.
Right, being part of something up and coming.
Exactly.
But what about those pitfalls? Do those hold you back?
Oh, of course. I'd be mindful of the risks.
Yeah.
That's why that team is so important, right? That agent, the lender, the attorney.
Having them by your side.
It'd give me more confidence, for sure.
It's all about balancing that entrepreneurial spirit with caution.
And expertise.
Yeah.
Which is what makes it so interesting, right? It's strategy, it's research, it's a little bit of intuition.
And in Silicon Valley, there's always something new.
Oh, yeah. Always changing.
Which is exciting.
It is.
Well, dear listeners, I hope you're feeling inspired.
Yeah.
Investing in Silicon Valley, it might seem daunting.
It can be.
But with the right knowledge, with the right team,
yeah,
it's definitely within reach.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is power. And now you've got the tools to unlock your own Silicon Valley dream.
There you go.
Okay, so we've, explored this market.
Yeah.
But what does it all mean for, the listener? What does it all mean for you?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
It's great to have all this knowledge, but it only matters if you can actually use it in your own life.
Exactly. So let's bring it back to you, the listener.
Okay.
Imagine you've decided to invest in Silicon Valley real estate. Where do you even start?
Well, I'd say the very first step is to really get clear on your goals.
Okay.
And of course, your financial situation.
Right.
What are you actually trying to get out of this investment?
Okay, yeah.
Are you looking for those quick gains or more long-term growth? How much risk are you okay with?
Right.
And really the most important thing is what can you actually afford?
So it's like creating a roadmap
Yeah,
for your Silicon Valley real estate adventure.
exactly.
You need to know where you're starting
Yeah,
and where you're going
right.
before you hit the road.
Exactly. Once you've got that figured out,
Okay.
you can start looking at all those different strategies we talked about.
Right.
See if any of them really jump out at you.
So, for example, maybe you're thinking about house hacking. Yeah.
Right.
Live rent-free,
Yeah.
build equity, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or maybe REITs are more your style,
Yeah.
that hands-off approach. Or, hey, maybe you're feeling bold and want to try some creative financing.
Yeah, it's really cool how many options there are.
It is, yeah. There's something for everyone in this market.
Now, we talked about pitfalls,
Right.
but let's flip it for a second.
Okay.
What are some of the most rewarding parts of investing in Silicon Valley?
Well, I think for one, you're investing in a place that's really at the forefront of innovation.
Okay. Yeah.
Silicon Valley is a global hub for technology.
Right. Entrepreneurship, creativity.
All of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Where the future is being shaped.
So it's not just about the property itself. It's about being part of something bigger.
I think so, yeah. And then, of course, from the financial side, Silicon Valley has a really strong history of, property value going up.
Right. And long term, that outlook looks good.
Yeah.
And we can't forget those intangible rewards, of owning real estate.
Oh, for sure. Especially somewhere like Silicon Valley.
It's like a sense of pride.
Yeah. It's an asset, something you can see, touch. It's yours.
Yeah. It's a legacy in a way.
So that's a good way to put it.
Okay, so let's say you've done your research. You got your strategy.
Yeah.
You're ready to go. What's next?
It's time to reach out to that A-team.
Right. Get in touch with that agent.
Find an agent who really knows the market.
They can really help you, with all the ins and outs.
Absolutely, yeah. And make sure you get pre-approved for that mortgage.
Right, so you know how much you can spend.
That'll put you in a much stronger position to make an offer.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about those more complex strategies, like subject to deals, seller financing.
Talk to a lawyer.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure you understand the risks.
Protect yourself.
Yeah, make informed decisions.
Investing in Silicon Valley, sharing your success story. That wraps up our deep dive into Silicon Valley real estate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember, knowledge is power.
It is.
Now you've got the tools to unlock your own Silicon Valley dream.
Good luck out there.
Thanks for listening.